So what you're looking at right now is surveillance video allegedly of Lamont Gordon, who has been arrested for 4 counts of burglary because a police officer, according to the reporting, was actually able to recognize Gordon from this surveillance video. Now you might be saying, Sean, that's pretty ridiculous. That's pretty absurd. How could a police officer know just from looking at this surveillance video that that is in fact Lamont Gordon? Well, the reason why is because Lamont Gordon was actually on parole for 3 prior burglary convictions at the time that he allegedly committed these crimes. So he was well known to police officers. And guess what? The reason why we're doing this story is not because he committed those 4 additional robberies or burglaries, because those are alleged. It's because his parole wasn't even revoked. And guess what? Those 3 prior convictions, those are just the ones that he is currently on parole for. It turns out that he has 23 total burglary convictions, and his arrest history and conviction history shows us a pattern of soft on crime policing or soft on crime sentencing failing time and time again. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I will remind you that on February 15th and 16th, we are doing DebateCon 5. It is in Newark, New Jersey. There actually may be a scheduling change. Maybe I'll debate on the 15th rather than the 16th. The link to tickets is in the top of the description. If you can come out for those days, please do. I would love to see you there. Now look, already I have a million problems with this particular case. The reason you put somebody out on parole is so that they can function in society as long as they don't break additional laws. And when they do, you're supposed to violate their parole. But not only was Lamont Gordon's parole not violated after he was arrested on these additional 4 burglary counts, but they didn't even put him on electric monitoring. And the thing is, electric monitoring bracelets don't really prevent crime. However, they can provide police officers with useful information if they commit new offenses, like the geodata of the suspect at the time that that offense occurred. Now, you guys might remember we did a story about 2 illegal migrants who allegedly murdered a 63-year-old man in his basement apartment by tying him up and beating him there. One of them was on electric monitoring because they were arrested shortly before that for trying to lure a minor potentially into a similar trap, a very serious crime. And of course, they were put on electric monitoring, which did not prevent this murder, but it gave us key geodata in order to potentially secure a conviction against that illegal migrant criminal. So in this particular case, even if you're not going to violate this person's parole as a new condition of parole, you could have put the monitoring bracelet on him, so that way we could at least know when there's a break-in if he's in and around the area for sure based on that bracelet. But of course that didn't happen, and we shouldn't be surprised that that didn't happen because Lamont Gordon has a long history of being released early, getting slaps on the wrist that dates back all the way to 1988 when he was first convicted of 5 felony burglaries, sentenced to 5 5-year sentences meant to be served concurrently, which means at the same time, as opposed to consecutively, which would have been 25 years total. However, he was arrested again just 2 years later and convicted in 1990 for another felony burglary, and he was sentenced to 4 years. Now, you guys might be assuming if he has 6 felony burglary convictions, 2 different times that he was on trial and convicted, that they wouldn't release him early again, and he wouldn't be able to just commit the same crime. Well, you're dead wrong, because in 1992, he was convicted and given 8 years for another felony burglary. Now, you guys might be thinking, it's the 1990s. Tough on crime is in vogue. Biden's crime bill, so racist, so bad, black man treated so bad by the system, never gets any break because of the systemic structures. So there's no way on a third strike that this guy was released early yet again to commit the same exact crime yet again. And you would be entirely wrong, because in 1996, he was given 8 years yet again for another felony burglary that he was convicted of. Now, I know a lot of you out there in the audience are thinking, okay, Sean, he's obviously being released early on all of these different sentences. He's obviously going right back to repeat offending, getting arrested, getting convicted again, but there is no way that after his 4th different trial, after his 8th felony burglary conviction, that he was then released early just to commit another felony burglary. And you guys are actually 100% right about that. He did not get released early just to commit a felony burglary. He got released early and then committed a much more serious crime. So in the year 2000, he got 14 years for an armed home invasion, which again had burglary as the motivation, but this is a much more serious crime, a much more serious serious escalation, and just proof positive that the felon not being able to own a gun control in the city of Chicago, where they already have very strict gun control, was wholly ineffective. Now, of course, 14 years for an armed home robbery. Again, we're on the 5th different trial that this man has been through. We're up to about 9 or 10 felony convictions for different crimes. There's no way that he was released early. Of course he was released early. Of course he was released early, and by 2007, guess what? He was convicted yet again of another crime of a similar nature. In fact, he was convicted of 2 different felonies in which he was given 2 concurrent 7-year sentences, again in the year 2007. Now, in this particular case, finally, it appears like he had to actually serve out his time. He actually had to pay his debt to society. I mean, he got a little bit of a break in that the sentences were concurrent and not consecutive. So he was out back on the streets in 2013, where he was convicted of 9 more felony burglary counts. Now, these 9 counts resulted in 9, again, concurrent 14-year sentences, not consecutive, so a little bit of a break there. However, of course, he was released early despite the fact that he never completes any of his sentences, despite the fact that he's been a repeat offender time and time again. And in 2021, he was convicted of 3 additional burglaries. These are the ones that he was on parole for, and again, given 7 years in prison. So, of course, he's back out on the streets and paroled in less than half that time. Oh, and by the way, when he was convicted of those 2021 burglaries, those 3 different felony counts, he was on parole for the 2013 burglaries. So again, this guy has shown us over and over and over again that he is going to continue to burglarize people. He is going to continue to commit crimes time and time again, even while he's on parole. He is a repeat offender. He has escalated to the point where he's brought a deadly weapon into that situation, and yet the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, the Cook County prosecutor, the Cook County district attorney released this person time after time after time, and he's recently arrested yet again for his connection to 4 different new burglaries, and he gets a next day automatic release, no electronic monitoring. We can't charge him bail because honestly, Lamont Gordon, innocent Baba Angel Aladdin. When you look at this man, when you look at him coming into your home with a gun, potentially shooting you to death for your property, what do you think? Who do you feel for? Do you feel for the person that he's about to murder, the person who may be a father, who may be a good contributing person for the city of Chicago, for the United States of America, or do you feel for this innocent Baba Angel Aladdin who tells police every time that he's arrested that he is stealing in order to fuel his drug habit? Now look, many of you out there in the audience might be saying, Sean, okay, look, he has a 23-time conviction in this particular category of crime. He is so recognizable that an officer who saw the city alert recognized him with this mask on his face, but honestly, that is not even probable cause in order to initiate an arrest, and you're gonna have to provide more evidence that this guy didn't just suddenly change his ways before you decide to put him on electronic monitoring. And again, I should ask you guys out there in the audience, if you actually believe that, what you're smoking, can I buy some? Can this guy buy some because he's an addict? And maybe if you pump him full of those kind of drugs, he'll be too high to actually initiate these robberies. Because it turns out, not only was he recognized, again, because he's such a common thief in this area, by a police officer from this surveillance video with his mask on, again, that's how common of a criminal this guy is, but when he was arrested and shown the surveillance video, guess what? He said, yeah, that's me. He confessed to the crime. So again, they have very strong evidence that this guy is in fact a criminal. It's like he's actively trying to violate his parole so he can get sent back to jail, sent back to prison. But guess what? The state of Illinois is like, no, honestly, you're an innocent Baba Angel Aladdin. We need to talk about the legacy of slavery. Where's Brandon Johnson to do a subcommittee hearing about how reparations would solve this guy's problems? And I'm not joking about that. He brought that up very recently.
I wish the next time you talk to the committee chair, ask him if he would be interested in doing a hearing on how reparations can transform people's lives. Just ask him.
Because we all know the real problem that Lamont Gordon is facing is not his drug addiction, is not his potential mental illness, is not the fact that he keeps committing the same crime over and over and over again, and giving him a break does not stop him from committing that crime over and over and over again. It's that he's the victim of society. It's that America actually had black people as slaves at one point in time in our history. Therefore, that is an innocent Baba Angel Aladdin. He didn't do nothing wrong. He was just trying to steal bread from his starving family. He was just home invading people with a gun so that he could kill them for his starving family. And all the different various early releases, they'll work the next time. Trust us, he's never gonna do it again. I mean, 23 times, about to be 27 burglary convictions in. He's gonna change his ways at 58 years old, and just wait and see. And if you disagree, shut up, bigot. Shut up, racist. Shut up, you white supremacist. Again, Gordon told the police that he has a narcotics/cocaine habit/addiction, according to the arrest report, but under Illinois' cashless bail law, people accused of burglary can only be detained if they use force against another person in the break-in. However, Franklin County State's Attorney Abby Din says that there is an exception, and that is if an individual has 2 prior Class 2 felonies within the last 10 years. Gordon has 3 Class 2 felony convictions in the past 4 years, all for burglary, court records show, but prosecutors didn't even ask the judge to detain him, and the state did not issue a parole warrant. Dyer released Gordon on Thursday, telling him to stay away from the businesses he's accused of burglarizing. So Illinois, of course, has a dumbass bail reform law, but it's not as bad as New York State bail reform, where, of course, if you're a burglar, a serial burglar, then you can get away with it. You cannot be held in jail pre-trial as long as you don't hurt anybody during the course of your burglary or physically threaten somebody. However, there is an exception, which is if you have 2 prior Class 2 or above felony convictions in the last 10 years, and this guy more than qualifies for that exception. But of course, the Cook County District Attorney's Office couldn't be bothered to hold him, and the craziest thing about this is that this news site that I'm finding this article from actually has a link to the same article that they wrote back in 2021 when he was arrested while on parole for burglary when he was a 20-time convicted felon. So presumably, after he's released early on these additional 4 crimes that he will likely be convicted of, we will have an article about him being arrested again while being on parole for that as a 27-time convicted burglary felon. Look, there are many things that are complicated in the criminal justice system, but this ain't it. If somebody shows themselves to have a pattern of behavior of repeat offending, guess what? You hold them in custody. You violate their parole. You stop giving them additional chances when they've proven that with those chances, they just commit more crimes. But for whatever reason, the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago thinks the opposite is true. Thinks if you just release them over and over and over again, then guess what? No big deal. He will be released back out onto the streets and all of a sudden, productive member of society. This guy is on the cusp of founding an electric car company that is going to supplant Tesla because he is one of our nation's leading scholars, if not for the fact that the systemic systems and the systemic structures were holding him back. No, that's not the case. He is a burglar. He steals things because he likes to steal from people. He has a drug problem. He has other problems, and you need to get him off the streets. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute craziness of this felon being released again, and this being in the news just 3 or 4 years after it was in the news before when he was released early that time. Till next time.